This is the Programmer Owl, and in this video I'm going to walk through the Edabit Python challenge called Leap Year Function. And this one is a little bit complicated because the rules of figuring out a leap year are so weird. Because usually if a number is divisible by 4, because the leap year happens every 4 years, then that means it's a leap year. Except for when it's divided by 100. Not all of those are leap years. So like 1900 was not a leap year. It can be divided by 100 evenly, but for some reason it's not a leap year. To make it a leap year on a 00, like 1900, 2000, whatever, it has to also be divisible by 400. So I'm going to talk about this problem in two ways. First, there's the cheating the Edabit system way, because if you look at the tests, none of the tests are on like a century year, like 1900 or 1800 or 1600 or whatever. So it's not actually going to test for to see if it's divisible by 100 and by 400. So the cheat code way of doing that is a simple one-liner code, and that would be return year. Modulo, remember, is what you use to divide by a certain number and figure out what the remainder is. And if it's divisible evenly by whatever number you give it, it'll equal 0. So if the year is divisible by 4 and it has no remainder, then it should return true, otherwise it should return false. And because this isn't the tests that they give us aren't really testing to see if it's divisible by 100 and by 400, we can actually get away with this code. So if you check it, all the tests should pass. And they do. But that's cheating, and that's just satisfying the requirements of these, like 7 or 8 test situations, and it's not really fulfilling the prompt or the challenge. So to fulfill the prompt or the challenge, you have to go a little bit deeper. So basically, you have to see if it's divisible by 100, then most of the time it's not going to be a leap year. So that's what we should attack first. So just as a quick reminder, we're creating a function for a leap year to determine if it's a leap year, true or false. And they give us the name of the function, and then they give us the input or the argument that we're going to pass through the function. So if the year is divisible by 100, and we don't get any remainders, then we need to test to see if it's also divisible by 400, because 1900 is divisible by 100, but it's not divisible by 400, thus it makes it not a leap year. So we want to make it sure it can pass like for 2000 and 1600 and 1200 and whatever. So to include that, we need to do another if statement. So if year is divisible by 400, and we don't get any remainders, then we're going to return true, if I can spell true. Else, that's weird. Something is up. Okay, my tabs were off a little bit. So let's see if I can fix them. Okay, there we go. So else return false. So if the year is divisible by 100 and also divisible by 400, then it'll be a true statement. Otherwise, return false if it can be divided by 100. Now, what about numbers like 1564 or 1928? They're not going to be divisible by 100, but they're going to be divisible by 4. So let's test that. So else if, let's make sure I have my tabs right, else if year is divisible by 4 and we don't have a remainder, then it should return true, because we already ruled out and got all the testing of the is it divisible by 100 out of the way. And then we can approach, can we divide it by 4? And then if it can't be divided by 4 and it can't be divided by 100 and 400, then it's going to return false. So this is a lot more code than what the cheat way was, but this is actually solving the whole problem and the whole prompt of the challenge. And this should pass all the tests if I did this right. Nope, I didn't. Okay, so it says there's a problem with my else. There's a tab error. Okay, I knew this. So what I do is I'm just going to go back and redo all the tabs. And for some reason, Python seems to be a lot more touchy about their tabs than other ones, it seems like. So I'm just trying to tab everything to where I remember it being, and then hopefully that'll pass it. Because I don't think it's the code that's the issue. I think it's just, yeah, it was just the tab and the format of that. So if you ever run into that error, it may not be your code. It may just simply be, resetting all the tabs and then pushing it back by tabbing, because they need to make sure that the spaces and the tabs are equal. So that's a way to attack an issue on Edabit if you're finding you're having trouble. And so that is my walkthrough of the leap year function challenge.